Imagine waking up 1 year from now with your life completely transformed, not because of a dramatic breakthrough, not because you suddenly became more disciplined, but because you made tiny choices that were so small, you barely noticed them. What if getting just 1% better every single day could reshape your health, your mindset, your confidence, and your entire future? Most people believe big change requires big effort, but the truth is the opposite. Real change happens quietly, in the small choices you repeat. This is the hidden power behind every successful person you admire. And in the next few minutes, you're going to discover the simple, science-backed method that can change your life without burning you out or overwhelming you. This is the secret behind Atomic Habits. Why such tiny actions lead to such extraordinary results. If you've ever struggled to stay consistent with the gym, reading, waking up earlier, improving your focus, stay with me, because what you're about to learn can unlock the version of yourself you've been trying to reach for years. Atomic Habits, written by James Clear, is one of the most influential books on personal development, and for good reason. Instead of focusing on motivation or willpower, which we all know run out, this book explains how habits shape our identity and ultimately determine our success. Habits are the small decisions we make and the everyday actions we take. They may seem insignificant in the moment, but they compound over time, just like money earning interest. One small improvement repeated daily becomes a powerful advantage, and one small mistake ignored daily becomes a major setback. The idea isn't to chase massive goals, but to build a system that naturally leads you toward them. In this video, you're going to explore how small habits work, how identity plays a more important role than motivation, the 4 simple laws that can help you build good habits effortlessly, and how to break the bad ones holding you back. By the end, you will understand how to design your life around a system that supports your growth every single day. Chapter 1. The surprising power of atomic habits. Small changes often feel insignificant at first, but James Clear explains that they carry enormous potential when repeated consistently. This chapter introduces the idea of compounding. Just as money grows through compound interest, habits grow through repeated actions that stack over time. The problem is that we expect immediate results, and when we don't see them, we assume the habit isn't working. Clear calls this the valley of disappointment, where progress is building quietly beneath the surface. He emphasizes that habits are like the roots of a tree. Growth is invisible before it becomes obvious. The chapter also highlights why tiny improvements matter more than big transformations, because small habits are the foundation of long-term success. If you get just 1% better every day, you become nearly 37 times better in a year. This chapter sets the stage for the rest of the book by teaching you to trust the process, even when results are slow. Change is not about massive shifts, it's about the cumulative power of consistent effort. Chapter 2. How your habits shape your identity. Clear argues that the deepest form of habit change is identity change. Most people focus on outcomes like losing weight, being productive, or becoming more confident, but those results can't stick unless the underlying identity changes. Instead of saying, "I want to read more," it's more powerful to say, "I am a reader." Your actions eventually align with who you believe you are. The chapter explains that every habit you perform is like a vote for the type of person you want to become. Even small habits help cast consistent votes toward a stronger identity. Identity-based habits work because they shift your behavior from something you do to something you are. The goal is not to run a marathon, but to become a runner. Not to learn an instrument, but to become a musician. Clear shows that lasting change happens from the inside out. You decide who you want to be, and then you build habits that reinforce that identity. When your identity and actions align, habits become natural instead of forced. Chapter 3. How to build better habits in 4 simple steps. Clear breaks down every habit into a 4-step loop: cue, craving, response, and reward. This pattern governs all human behavior, from checking your phone to brushing your teeth. The cue triggers the habit. The craving gives motivation. The response is the actual action, and the reward satisfies the desire and reinforces the loop. Understanding these steps allows you to build good habits and break bad ones more strategically. Clear uses these steps to introduce the 4 laws of behavior change, which form the core of the book. To build a good habit, make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. To break a bad habit, do the opposite. Make it invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. This chapter acts as the blueprint for everything that follows. It shifts habits from something mysterious to something predictable, giving you a clear system to design the behaviors you want. Once you master this loop, you can intentionally shape your environment and choices rather than relying on motivation alone. Chapter 4. The Man Who Didn't Look Right. This chapter highlights how much of our behavior runs on autopilot. Clear tells the story of a police officer who sensed something was off, about a man in a bar before anything obvious happened. It wasn't intuition, it was experience. Over time, the officer had unconsciously learned cues that signaled danger. This illustrates a key point. Habits allow the brain to operate efficiently by automating repeated actions. Clear explains that the brain always seeks to conserve energy, and habits free us from constantly thinking about basic tasks. The downside is that unconscious habits can also lead to unwanted behaviors. This chapter introduces the importance of awareness through a practice called the habit scorecard, where you label daily behaviors as positive, negative, or neutral. By recognizing your automatic patterns, you gain power to change them. The message is simple. You can't improve a habit you're not aware of. Awareness is the first step toward intentional behavior change. Chapter 5. The best way to start a new habit. Clear introduces the idea of implementation intentions, which means creating a specific plan for when and where a habit will occur. Instead of saying, I want to exercise more, you say, I will exercise at 5 p.m. at the gym. People who frame habits this way are far more likely to follow through because the cue becomes clear. He also introduces habit stacking, linking a new habit to an existing one. For example, after I make my morning coffee, I will meditate for 2 minutes. Because your brain already recognizes the existing habit, it becomes a stable anchor for the new one. Habit stacking is powerful because it removes the need for motivation or decision-making. The chapter explains that successful habits don't happen by accident. They happen by design. When you assign your habit a specific time, place, and trigger, you dramatically reduce friction and increase the likelihood of consistency. Chapter 6. Motivation is overrated. Environment often matters more. Clear explains that environment plays a far bigger role in shaping behavior than motivation. People assume they need more willpower, but what they really need is a better environment. Habits respond to the cues around us, and when our surroundings are designed well, the right behaviors become almost effortless. If healthy snacks are visible on the counter, you're more likely to eat them. If your phone is next to your bed, you're more likely to scroll late at night. The environment shapes the cue, and the cue shapes the habit. Clear encourages you to become the architect of yours. Put items you need for good habits in visible, convenient locations, and remove cues that trigger bad habits. In essence, the environment is the invisible hand that guides human behavior. Changing your surroundings can change your habits often, without requiring any extra self. Chapter 7. The secret to self-control. Clear argues that people with strong self-control don't resist temptation more. They avoid it altogether. The most effective strategy is not battling cravings, but reducing exposure to the cues that create them. This chapter builds on the idea of environment design by showing that self-control is a short-term strategy, not a long-term solution. Once a habit is triggered, resisting it becomes much harder. For example, if you're trying to stop snacking, it is easier to avoid buying junk food than to keep resisting it once it's in your home. Research shows that disciplined individuals structure their lives so they face fewer temptations. This flips the traditional narrative. Instead of relying on willpower, rely on smart design. If you want better habits, don't fight your environment, change it. Clear reinforces that the secret to good habits is not heroic discipline, but consistently making temptation invisible. Chapter 8. How to make a habit irresistible. This chapter introduces the temptation bundling technique, pairing something you want to do with something you need to do. For example, watching your favorite show only while exercising immediately increases the attractiveness of the workout. Cleo also discusses how cravings drive behavior. Every habit is associated with a deeper desire, such as connection, relaxation, or approval. By understanding the underlying craving, you can shape habits more effectively. The brain seeks dopamine, and tempting habits produce dopamine spikes. Claire explains that you can rewire habits to become more appealing by modifying the way you perceive them. If you associate positive emotions with a new habit, you're more likely to enjoy it and stick to it. This chapter emphasizes that motivation increases when habits feel rewarding and enjoyable, not forced or punishing. Chapter 9. The role of family and friends in shaping your habits. Clear explains that humans naturally imitate the behaviors of those around them, especially the people they admire or want to fit in with. Our families, friends, and social circles create invisible expectations that guide our habits. When you surround yourself with people who embody the habits you desire, like readers, athletes, or entrepreneurs, are more likely to adopt those behaviors. Clear highlights 3 groups that influence habits: the close family and friends, the many or wider community, and the powerful people you admire. If you join a group where your desired behavior is the norm, the habit becomes easier because it offers both social approval and belonging. This chapter shows that behavior is contagious. Surround yourself with a culture that supports your goals, and those habits will naturally feel more appealing and sustainable. Chapter 10. How to find and fix the causes of your bad habits. This chapter teaches you to analyze bad habits by digging deeper into the cues and cravings that drive them. Most bad habits aren't random, they serve a purpose, often providing comfort, stress, relief, or distraction. Clear explains that to break a habit, you must understand what you're really seeking. Is scrolling social media an escape from boredom? Is snacking a way to soothe anxiety? Once you identify the real need, you can replace the habit with a healthier alternative. Claire encourages breaking the habit loop by making the cues invisible and reframing the mindset behind the craving. Instead of thinking, "I need this to relax," you tell yourself, "This is not who I want to be." The chapter emphasizes awareness and thoughtful redesign rather than punishment or guilt. Chapter 11. Walk slowly, but never backward. Claire highlights the importance of continuous improvement, even if progress seems slow. Habits don't need to be perfect. They need to be consistent. He encourages focusing on showing up rather than obsessing over intensity. Small steps keep you moving forward, but skipping habits repeatedly pushes you backward. He introduces the concept of the aggregation of marginal gains, used famously by elite cycling teams to achieve massive improvement through tiny upgrades. The lesson is that small progress compounds and builds momentum. The chapter reinforces that developing strong habits is not about speed, but patience and steady growth. You don't need to be exceptional every day. You just need to avoid sliding backward. Chapter 12. The Law of Least Effort. This chapter explains that humans naturally choose the path of least resistance. If a habit is easy, you'll do it. If it's hard, you'll avoid it. Claire encourages you to reduce friction for good habits and increase friction for bad ones. For example, if working out requires driving 30 minutes, the friction is high. But if your workout mat is already laid out in your room, friction lowers dramatically. He suggests preparing your environment so the desired action is the simplest option. Likewise, bad habits should be made inconvenient, like uninstalling apps or moving junk food out of reach. Claire explains that making habits easy is not laziness, it's smart design. The easier the habit, the more likely it becomes a natural part of your routine. Chapter 13. How to stop procrastinating by using the 2-minute rule. Claire introduces the 2-minute rule, which states that any habit should be scaled down to something you can do in 2 minutes or less. Instead of read a book, you start with read 1 page. Instead of run 3 miles, you start with put on my running shoes. This breaks the mental resistance that causes procrastination. The goal isn't to accomplish everything in 2 minutes, but to make starting effortless. Once you begin, momentum takes over. Claire explains that people fail not because habits are hard, but because they set the bar too high at the beginning. The 2-minute rule builds the identity of someone who shows up consistently. Once the habit is established at a micro level, you can expand naturally. Chapter 14. How to make good habits inevitable. This chapter focuses on locking good habits into your environment through commitment devices. These are decisions you make in the present to control your actions in the future. Examples include scheduling workouts with a friend, automatic savings transfers, or placing your phone in another room before bed. Claire explains that commitment devices create a structure that removes the need for constant willpower. When you make the desired behavior the automatic choice, habits become inevitable. This chapter shows how to engineer environments where good habits are the default. Chapter 15. The cardinal rule of behavior change. Clear explains that what gets rewarded gets repeated. Immediate rewards reinforce habits, because the brain responds strongly to instant gratification. Good habits often have delayed rewards, which makes them harder to stick to. Bad habits, like junk food or scrolling, feel good immediately. To make good habits stick, Clear suggests adding small, instant rewards, such as checking off a habit tracker or treating yourself after completing a task. Over time, the internal satisfaction becomes the reward. This chapter reinforces the idea that satisfaction drives repetition. Chapter 16. How to stick with good habits every day. Consistency is the key to habit formation. Clear introduces habit tracking as a visual method to reinforce progress. Seeing your streak grow motivates continued action, but he also warns that missing one day is normal, missing twice is dangerous. The rule is simple: never miss twice. This prevents the downward spiral that often occurs when routines break. Tracking creates accountability, satisfaction, and self-awareness. It also removes the ambiguity of whether you're improving. Chapter 17. How an accountability partner can change everything. Clear explains that humans avoid disappointing others, and accountability partners leverage this tendency. When someone is watching your progress, you're more likely to follow through. Heist's accountability, like paying a fine if you feel, can be even more powerful. Social pressure can transform intentions into actions. The chapter reinforces that change becomes easier when you don't do it alone. Chapter 18. The truth about talent. Clear argues that talent isn't everything. While genetics influence strengths, habits determine how far those strengths go. Success is built when talent meets consistency. Knowing your natural abilities helps you choose habits that align with your strengths, making them easier to sustain. The idea is not to ignore talent, but to build habits that amplify it. Chapter 19. The Goldilocks Rule. Humans stay motivated when tasks are not too hard and not too easy, just challenging enough. This is the Goldilocks Rule. If a habit becomes boring or too comfortable, progress slows. Clear explains that slight challenges keep you engaged and improving. Mastery requires continuous but manageable growth. Chapter 20. The downside of creating good habits. Habits make tasks automatic, but the downside is complacency. Once something becomes effortless, you stop paying attention and may plateau. Clear encourages deliberate practice, constantly analyzing and improving your habits so they don't stagnate. The goal isn't just to build habits, but to refine them continuously. If this breakdown helped you understand the book on a deeper level, make sure to hit that like button so more people can discover it. And if you want more videos that turn powerful books into practical lessons you can use in real life, subscribe and turn on notifications to get new summaries and mindset guides regularly. Chapter 15. The Cardinal Rule of Behavior Change. Clear explains that what gets rewarded gets repeated. Immediate rewards reinforce habits, because the brain responds strongly to instant gratification. Good habits often have delayed rewards, which makes them harder to stick to. Bad habits, like junk food or scrolling, feel good immediately. To make good habits stick, Clear suggests adding small, instant rewards, such as checking off a habit tracker or treating yourself after completing a task. Over time, the internal satisfaction becomes the reward. This chapter reinforces the idea that satisfaction drives repetition. Chapter 16. How to stick with good habits every day. Consistency is the key to habit formation. Clear introduces habit tracking as a visual method to reinforce progress. Seeing your streak grow motivates continued action, but he also warns that missing one day is normal, missing twice is dangerous. The rule is simple: never miss twice. This prevents the downward spiral that often occurs when routines break. Tracking creates accountability, satisfaction, and self-awareness. It also removes the ambiguity of whether you're improving. Chapter 17. How an accountability partner can change everything. Clear explains that humans avoid disappointing others, and accountability partners leverage this tendency. When someone is watching your progress, you're more likely to follow through. Heist's accountability, like paying a fine if you feel, can be even more powerful. Social pressure can transform intentions into actions. The chapter reinforces that change becomes easier when you don't do it alone. Chapter 18. The truth about talent. Clear argues that talent isn't everything. While genetics influence strengths, Habits determine how far those strengths go. Success is built when talent meets consistency. Knowing your natural abilities helps you choose habits that align with your strengths, making them easier to sustain. The idea is not to ignore talent, but to build habits that amplify it. Chapter 19. The Goldilocks Rule. Humans stay motivated when tasks are not too hard and not too easy, just challenging enough. This is the Goldilocks rule. If a habit becomes boring or too comfortable, progress slows. Claire explains that slight challenges keep you engaged and improving. Mastery requires continuous but manageable growth. Chapter 20. The downside of creating good habits. Habits make tasks automatic, but the downside is complacency. Once something becomes effortless, you stop paying attention and may plateau. Claire encourages deliberate practice, constantly analyzing and improving your habits so they don't stagnate. The goal isn't just to build habits, but to refine them continuously. If this breakdown helped you understand the book on a deeper level, make sure to hit that like button so more people can discover it. And if you want more videos that turn powerful books into practical lessons you can use in real life, subscribe and